Welcome to Legacy Unscripted, sponsored by Progeny Coaching. This is the podcast where sports and business collide. I'm your host, Russ Katzman, and with every episode, we have an open conversation with someone who's built something meaningful. It's unscripted, it's unrehearsed, and unapologetically real. For this episode, I'm happy to welcome Neil Vinyals, professional soccer player and president at the Project Inspire Foundation. Neil, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Russ. It's a pleasure to be here and be discussing many interesting topics. So thank you for having me.
No, I appreciate it. So I want to start there, right with the foundation. What is Project Inspire and what was its inspiration?
Yeah, so Project Inspire, which actually we're changing the name to Inspire Soccer League. So that's our formal name. Project Inspire is the legal name, but the Inspire Soccer League is the first ever year-long competitive and nationwide soccer league for athletes with intellectual disabilities in the United States. So for the first time, these athletes get to be treated as athletes and not just participants, with professional standards, playing in professional venues, and having a competition system that allows some teams to win, some teams to lose. As we always say, winning and losing is not the most important thing, but having the teams to do so, it is. So that's a little bit about Project Inspire. How it started, I think it's a pretty cool story and really embodies what we're about here at the Inspire Soccer League. So I'm the co-founder with the other co-founder, which is João Gomiro, which he's originally from Brazil, also a professional soccer player. And when I was playing in the Richmond Kickers a couple of years ago in USL League One, I met João. So we were roommates. We played together for like 2 years. And as you know, when you're on a team, you spend a lot of time together and you realize that there are a lot of passions that live outside of the soccer field. And for us, we realized pretty quickly that one of those passions was coaching, spending time with athletes with intellectual disabilities. So I had previous experience back in Barcelona with the Johan Cruyff Foundation, and João also had experience with Special Olympics back in North Carolina. But really the project came about because in the Richmond Kickers, there was a program called RVA Access. So basically they provided the opportunity for athletes with different abilities to come and play 1 hour soccer on a Sunday at City Stadium, which is an iconic stadium in the middle of Richmond. And yeah, it was 1 hour soccer. We fell in love with the program. We went to every single session that we could, that our schedule allowed. And what was really cool is that, of course, the relationships that we built with athletes. But in one of the last sessions that we went in 2023, one of the athletes, Ryan, that happened to have Down syndrome, we were picking up some cones at the end of the session. Then he came up to us and he asked us, when can I play for the Richmond Kickers with you guys? And really that question was when John and myself, we looked at each other and we said, well, why can Ryan not play for the Kickers? And we can. That definitely has to change. And that's really how Project Inspire, the Inspire Soccer League, was created. And that's really embodies what the experience that we want to provide to the athletes that are part of our league.
That's terrific. And I love the story. So first of all, are you still in touch with Ryan today? Does he know what you've created out of that conversation?
Yeah, for sure. With Ryan, with his dad, he's amazing too. And the big goal is to have a team in Richmond very soon. Hopefully it happens next year in 2027. But that's been our goal since we started the league. And that question, hopefully it becomes a reality. And Ryan can actually represent the Richmond Kickers, can represent Richmond at the national level. And how cool that would be.
That would be tremendous. So this just started in 23. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so 23 really was when we had the idea. 24, we spent majority of the first part of 24 developing the business plan, really talking to a lot of people, understanding how other people did things, the need for this league in the market, a lot of the well-being issues that people with intellectual disabilities have right now in the United States and across the globe, and really understanding that this wasn't it and that we needed to do something about it. So that was 2024. And then, of course, we started to speak to our partners, sponsors, teams, and the recruitment to kick off August 2025, which was the first ever fixture of the Inspire Soccer League at the Colorado Springs Switchback Stadium. It was a lot of work to get to that point, but it was so special and it went so well that first experience. And the most important thing is that the athletes really enjoyed themselves. They were able to play in a professional stadium. They were able to represent their club, and it was really rewarding. It was a special one for us.
That's great. That's just unreal. So you're coming into your second full season now. How many teams do you have as part of the league?
Yeah, so last year we had 4 teams and 4 fixtures. So we structured the league on a fixture based level. So basically, fixture is basically like a fancy word for an event where all
Yeah.
the teams travel to one location on a Friday. They play 2 games on a Saturday, 1 game on a Sunday, and they leave. So last year we had 4 teams and 4 fixtures. This year we're expanding to 6 teams and 6 fixtures. And I think a really cool part of the expansion is that we have teams from different organizations. So in the first year, we had 3 USL teams, one USL League One, the second was USL League One and USL Super League, which was Spokane, and the third one was a USL Championship, and then the fourth one was an independent team. This year, we're adding the first ever college team in Winthrop
Oh, really?
University, which is super special to me because it was the university that I attended and I graduated from, which is in Charlotte, very close to Charlotte. And then we're adding another independent team, Tech FC, from Columbia, South Carolina. So now we have 6 teams from different organizations. First time it's ever been done that you have professional college teams and independent teams in one league.
That's tremendous. How many total athletes are part of it?
Yeah, so this year we're projecting around 120 total athletes plus. Each team has around 20 athletes per team. So yeah, it's exciting to see the growth from last year to 80 athletes to this year already to 120. And we're excited for those new athletes to experience the Inspire Soccer League, and of course for the returning athletes that I was at the Spokane Impact practice this past week, and they were so excited to be back, to be traveling again, to be representing the club. And Spokane Impact, of course, no bias from me, but they won the league last year, so they're excited
Yeah,
to do it again.
that's funny. So I can see the excitement in you. I can only imagine the excitement in these athletes as they are allowed to get together and do this. Uh, is this a for-profit business or is this truly a foundation, a non-for-profit? What's the business structure behind it?
Yeah, for sure. So it is a non-profit. So we got our tax exempt status
Nice.
in 2025. It was a long process, it's almost 10-month process. But yeah, I think because of the cause that we represent, the non-profit business structure made the most sense. And it turned out to be the right decision. Thanks to a nonprofit status, we've been able to obtain grants, been able to obtain donations, and of course, we're still growing our sources of revenue to ensure that this is a sustainable league. But yeah, we're a nonprofit.
Well, I want to make sure that as we get to the end of this and we get ready to produce this thing, let's get the links for everybody into the show notes so that they can donate, they can contribute however they see fit.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Talk to me. The interesting challenge about the nonprofit is a lot of times I'll run into clients who say, "Well, I'm a nonprofit. I really can't make money." That's not true, right? You can make the money, you just have to use it within the bounds of your stated charter and how you've put yourself into business. What have been some of the challenges that you think you face on the NPO side that maybe isn't something that somebody on a for-profit organization would face?
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree with that statement. I think nonprofits have to be sustainable and they have to drive revenue in different
Mm-hmm.
ways, and there's some limitations to obtain that revenue. I think one of the biggest challenges that we had is, of course, when you have a for-profit, you have a percentage of the company, and then you're able to sell that to investors with a return of investment
Yep.
for the investment that they're making. What we've created is, of course, we don't have any ownership because we're in the board of directors, and we're still trying to expand that board of directors to acquire individuals that are passionate about the mission that we're putting forward. But the biggest challenge is really, well, you have no ownership, so you cannot sell in a sense that investment. So how are you going to prove to donors, to potential grant opportunities, to other sources of revenue that we're also developing, your social return of investment? And I think what we did, and thanks to a lot of the advisors that helped us throughout this process, is we understood that yes, we're a soccer league, um, but soccer is the least important thing that we're doing. And the most important thing is improving the well-being, physical, mental, and social, and inclusivity for these athletes that participate in our league. So we took a step back and understood, okay, what are the challenges right now from a well-being perspective that the IDD community is facing? For instance, people with IDD live 16 to 20 years less than the general population, which is a pretty big, astonishing stat. And that's due to 45% suffer from obesity, up to 60% experience mental health issues, as well as, of course, as the pathways to sports and competition are not there for this community. So from this understanding, okay, how can sports and structure sport, and most importantly, year long, which that's why we're the first ever year long soccer league or league in any sport, can drive those well-being metrics, and increase our social return of investment. So basically, we went back and said, okay, what's the cost for the average IDD family, to cover these well-being costs, and how can we mitigate those costs through the improvement of well-being, um, in sports competition.
So I think that's it. And by the way, I love the term social ROI or social return on investment. And I love it put that way. I've never heard that phrase before, but it's probably out there someplace. I just hadn't run across it yet. But I love that as a phrase. Talk to me about you as an organization. How do you know when you're successful? It's one thing to be able to tell donors or sponsors or the grant companies, yes, this is what we're returning in the market. But is that how you measure success, or do you have other metrics internally that you measure success for?
Yeah, for sure. So of course we're such a new organization that has grown so much, in the last year and a half, and the first year was really us learning, and talking to a lot of people to make the league a reality, right? We had to convince four teams to believe in this across the United States, convince the athletes and the families that they were
Mm-hmm.
going to travel around the United States and that they were going to be okay. And it was amazing to see that fixture after fixture, the more, uh, the independence that the athletes gained and the families were able to let go and not travel with those athletes, and understand that being in that team environment was really beneficial for them and the families too. Um, but as we go into this transition year 2026, where we grow to six teams, to six fixtures, I think it's very important for us, to put in place, metrics, processes, to understand what's success for us. And I think success at the core of the Inspire Soccer League is the athlete experience. So what we're doing right now is we're developing a survey, that's going to be put in place in the next month and a half before the start of the season, with the University of Pennsylvania, the Masters of Behavioral Science, which we've been partnering with them for a couple of years, to understand really the athlete experience. Of course, we have returning athletes from last year that we can track their experience from a well-being, again, social, mental, and physical, as well as the experience that they had overall with Inspire Soccer League. And then we're gonna implement it before, during, and after the season to see, um, those metrics, what they tell us, and of course how we can do a better job at improving the experience. We trying to provide as many tools as we can to those athletes. Last year we provided nutritional plans. We have broadcasting, so all the games are broadcasted with live commentators, and it's a super cool experience. Of course, for fans, families that are not able to travel, even for the athletes, they go back, watch the games, analyze, improve,
Yeah.
see themselves on the field, and of course how that affects their self esteem and self confidence. So we've been trying to treat it as it was any other professional competition, right? And that's really at the core of the question that Ryan asked: why can he not play for Richmond Kickers, but I can? And what are the differences there, and how we can make sure those differences, disappear? But I think athlete experience is the biggest metric that we have to ensure that it's at the core of what we do as we grow, Of course, there's the financial metrics that we have to present to sponsors, to partners, but that's secondary. If after the experience is not there, we lose what we're doing, really.
I liked what you said earlier about, and I even wrote it down, about the fact that soccer is the least important of the things you're doing. I think that what you talked about with travel and independence, it's it's what would be deemed a secondary piece of all of this. In fact, some people might think, well, the travels, can't we do this within a region? The travels, going to make it prohibitive, but what the teaching and the learning that they get out of that process that so many of us take for granted, that they have to go through and have tickets and get through security and understand the booking or the boarding process and even boarding zones and when do I go, when don't I go, and all of those things that are part of travel, right? Waiting for your bag, recognizing your bag when it comes around, all of those kind of things, that are independence building lessons for this group. That if you were asked on day one, my guess is you would have never dreamed that those were the outcomes you were going to seek.
Yeah, it's yeah, I completely agree with that. I think we spoke to so many people at the start, that told us, no, it's impossible. No, these athletes are not going to be able to travel from Spokane all the way to Knoxville. This is not going to happen. As you said, why don't you just start a little league regionally and then you can grow? And we've had a very clear vision from the start. This has to be a nationwide league. We have to make a statement. We have to prove that these athletes can train, can travel, can compete, can represent their club, and can grow in doing all of those things. And I think, of course, we would never have imagined the response of the athletes, but it was amazing to see. And for some of them, and I'm going to use an athlete from Spokane Impact, that he's 42 years old. First time that he got on a plane, first time that he left his state, and for him just to be able to be on a plane, to get out of his state, to travel to Colorado, to travel to Knoxville, to experience all of the things that he experienced, and have peers that now he can relate to both on his team and on other teams that he's, of course, it was cool to see that fixture after fixture they were mingling between them and they were creating those relationships. I think there's no dollar amount that we can put to that experience. What is super cool too is that, and that's why soccer again is the least important thing that we do. Of course, they have their games in the morning, Saturday, but then Saturday afternoon, we always have a cultural activity. So we want them also to understand the cultural pieces and traditions that are within the city that we go. Colorado Springs, we went to the Paralympic and Olympic Museum. They had a great experience. Spokane, for example, it was a completely different experience, and they went to the Spokane Zephyr game, the professional women's team here in Spokane. So those experiences really allowed them to connect to other players around the US. And as you can imagine, someone from Knoxville, very little chances to connect with someone from Spokane, and they're completely different parts of the country with different cultures and different worldviews. But
Sure.
thanks to soccer and thanks to this excuse, they were able to connect and have that relationship.
One thing I picked up from the places you've listed, Spokane, Colorado Springs, Knoxville, Richmond, these aren't major metro areas. Was that done by intent or necessity?
It was, I would love to say it was done by intent, but I'll say that the truth is we were looking for clubs that were interested in being part of the league. The fourth one actually is Houston, so it's a bigger metro area in a sense. It's probably the
Okay.
bigger one that we have, the biggest one that we have. But yeah, those were the four clubs that believed in us, that believed in our crazy idea, that believed that two guys from USL, two international guys from USL with no experience prior, no track record, were gonna be able to pull this off. And as we always say, without those four founding clubs, I wouldn't be here talking to you. And I think there were so many decisions that they had to make internally, from like, of course, a financial perspective, from a social perspective, they came from different backgrounds and different stories, different contexts. For example, United Gen FC had a team already in place, but has no infrastructure to like the other professional teams, and they had to build that infrastructure. Spokane, of course, has the USL infrastructure of two teams, men and women, but had no experience with the IDE community and had to recruit all of the athletes. Colorado Springs was kind of a mix where they had their unified program already in place, a big infrastructure, but now they had to really ask themselves, okay, why are now we having two teams? And they really had to see the value in the Inspire method and the Inspire project to be able to commit to a second team for people with IDD. And I think that goes a long way. So it was interesting to see how we had to support different contexts, and we were learning with the teams as we went. But I think that was the cool part of putting the league together too.
No, that's great. So when do you, and you may not have yet, but I'm guessing you have. When did you get that feeling of, I think this is going to work?
Yeah, honestly, like I've always had this feeling, like, and it's of course it's easy to say now that it was
Yeah.
gonna work, but I saw this idea with Joao, of course. We saw this idea so clearly that it had to work at all costs, and we've invested so much time and resources and connections. So deep down, we always knew that this was gonna work. Now, that being said, there were so many moments that we were scared, frustrated, sad, that we had to work through things with a lot of people and a lot of convincing that had to be done. And then, in a sense, I'm not going to say we were lucky with some of the timing that happened, but we were able to apply for the US Soccer Federation grant that we learned like a week prior that this was even an opportunity that we could apply for. Without that grant, the league probably wouldn't have happened the first year and the second year.
Wow.
So there were a lot of things that also fell into place, but I think it's because we were looking for those opportunities. But to answer the question, I would say the first fixture in Colorado was when everything came together. It was amazing to see what we thought before with our operations team, with our marketing team, with the great support that we had from the Colorado Springs Switchback staff, of like how we envisioned the fixture to happen logistically, and the experience of the athletes, and then see it right there that was happening, that everything was working, that they were having a great time. So it was honestly, a lot of people were asking us like, oh, what could have been improved? Of course, there's a lot of things that could be improved, but like from an operations standpoint, we were so satisfied on how that first fixture went. The weather was amazing. Like when we got there, 2 hours prior it was like raining nonstop, and then when we left, it started raining nonstop again. So I think everything aligned for us to have a great fixture. Even my schedule, like I played on a Thursday in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I think it's the only Thursday game I've had in 7 years that I'm in the league. So it allowed me to travel like Friday. That was our layover. Going back to Spokane from Madison was in Denver. So it was crazy coincidence too, and allowed me to be there for the first fixture. So yeah, I think that's when we really, everyone saw, because of course we had the vision of what it would look like, but all the teams, all the athletes, all the parents that attended, partners, they saw, okay, that's what these two crazy guys have been talking about like for the last year and a half. That's the difference. Now we understand the professionalism that they wanted to have. So yeah, really, really special moment for us.
Wow. Let's go to the other side of it. Right? You talked about those moments when a little bit of fear, a little bit of worry. Give us the story of one of those, right? Of one of those times when you were a little bit scared that it might not happen, a little bit worried that you weren't doing the right thing. Take me through that.
Yeah, I could be, the whole podcast could be just on that. And I think anyone that starts a project, non-profit, for profit, whatever, you experience so many moments of uncertainty and so many moments of just learning
Yeah.
from so many things that you have to acquire, like knowledge, skills that you have to acquire throughout the process. I'll say that the biggest concern for us was finding the teams. And I could walk you through two big scenarios that like really affected the whole planning and
Mm-hmm.
really made us really nervous about like, is this going to happen? And we set August 2025 as that's the day that we're starting, and there's no pushing that back. That was our communication. That was our messaging for all of the teams. But basically what happened is we had the first team that ever committed, which I'm not going to disclose who they were, but was the only team that bailed out 2 months before the start of the season. So we had Colorado Springs Switchbacks confirmed, One Knox confirmed, United General FC from Houston confirmed, and then these teams just bailed out. And we were like, okay, now we have to find a team. We're probably like 3 months until August, and we have to find a team. And if not, the league cannot happen, because with 3 teams, of course, it's not the same. And everything, all the planning was to start with 4 teams. So luckily, I signed for Spokane, the last city, and honestly, the ownership here at Spokane have been amazing. I think it's not a coincidence that we made it to 2 finals in the first 2 years for the men's side, as well as the success that they had in the women's side and the professional teams. But I knew that with the sensitivity that I felt from the ownership and the little time that I was here, that this could be a project that really fit into what the mission of the club was. So I presented the project to the owners here at Spokane, Katie and Ryan, and also thanks to Riley, which made that introduction on a Friday. And by Monday they said yes. They literally told us, we don't know how we're going to do it, but we're in, we believe in this. And that was probably in June. So wow. They had to create a team in 3 months, and they did an amazing job. They recruited like 30 athletes in like 2 weeks, and they ended up winning the league. So Spokane Impact was the champion for this year. But yeah, there were so many situations where we were talking to a lot of teams from different organizations, and you could feel the same excuses on quotes. Of course, everyone has a different schedule. Everyone has a different idea. A lot of people were waiting to see if this was even going to be a reality. I think when we got the funding from the U.S. Soccer Federation, it made it clear that this was like a big statement, $100,000 from the U.S. Soccer Federation. But yeah, there were so many moving pieces at that time. That was definitely a very uncertain time for us. So
very good. So let's switch from the soccer league to you as the owner, right? Talk to me about your migration or your evolution from when you started this to today. What are some of the big challenges that you've seen in yourself that you've kind of changed your approach or had to alter? And just talk to me a little bit about that evolution for you.
Yeah, it's been as I always say, like I went to college, I got like my sports management degree. I finished my master's now too, a completely different topic. But the 1.5 years, 2 years that I worked for, that we've been involved with the Inspire Soccer League, it's been the best. Mastering life, human resources, financials, etc. We've been so blessed and so lucky to have from the get-go almost between 16 to 22 people involved in the project, over 6 departments, all on a volunteer basis. And we still have 16 people working for us on a volunteer basis. Our big hope and goal is to, of course, start to reward those people next year. And that's why we need to find the funding. But for me, I'm someone that would consider myself very detail oriented, and I like very organized in a way. Joao, for example, is the one that can speak to anyone for like 3 hours with no problem and makes relationships very quickly. So for me, it was understanding, and I think the advisors that we had throughout the process, Santiago Lucio, Maria Fonclara, Reyes Metano, Alex Zeran, etc., really helped me personally understand that managing people is really hard, right? And managing a team and keeping them motivated throughout the whole process is really hard, especially when there's no compensation attached. And that I think the biggest lesson for me is that not everyone's going to do the work the same way that I do it. And I think that's the beauty of it. And it's important to acknowledge that. So if I do a certain task in a way, maybe you do it in a completely different way. And I have to respect that of doing it, because first, it might be much better my way. And second, is your way of doing things. And of course, if we end on the same objective, I have to respect that. So I think that was on a personal, like professional level, one of my biggest, my biggest accomplishments that I'm still working on. It, of course, is a process, a journey. And I guess the second one is also understanding that, we would get so frustrated at first when a meeting didn't go our way, or when someone like didn't really invest resources or wanted to be part of the league. And just understanding that everyone has so many other things going on, and that really things have to align perfectly for something to work, and respect that maybe it doesn't work this year or this month, but who knows if next year, next month, things change.
Yep.
And I think being more patient in that sense, it's been one of the second biggest lessons that I've learned.
Got it. So it's an interesting scenario that you have in your, we call it the sales process, right? Those conversations, because you're not selling a specific product or service. You're selling change. You're selling impact, right? And you're not looking for $9.99, or $11.99, or some specific number to be able to do it. It's whatever you feel, donate, provide, help, volunteer. That's a very different sales conversation. How did you get the skill to even start having those conversations? Where did that come from?
Again, I think it comes from the maturity process that the project had.
Yeah.
I always say, I think the key of the success so far that we had in the project is the 4 months that we took, even more, to really mature the idea, create the business model and plan, talk
Right.
to a lot of people, understand what worked, what didn't work, and then from there, we had a clear vision of what we wanted to implement. That vision and some details changed in the process, of course, and we learned things throughout the way. But I think people looked at us and had a conversation with us and saw that we were so convinced and so determined that this was going to work, and we explained the reasons why, because we spent so much time researching and understanding the why behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And the how and the what was easy to express. And I think that's just the best sales pitch that you can have. I don't think I'm the best communicator. I don't think I'm like a great salesperson. I'll say Draw is better than that than me. But I think as a team, we also complement each other very well, and our personalities complement each other very well. And I think that's one of the recipes for success that we've had. But really believing on the mission from the start, from the get go.
So you just noted the vision that you had from the beginning. How does what's on the field today, or what's in that fixture today, how is that different from what you pictured to begin with, and what was kind of the impetus for making a change?
Yeah, I think the vision, the mission, which of course are different things, but they remain the same throughout the course. We had a very clear mission of, we're not here to create a soccer league. That's not our why. We're here to improve the well-being and inclusivity for people with intellectual disabilities through sports competition. Now, what's the vision? To create the most professional soccer league that is year-long, that is competitive, that is nationwide. And then we added things to that. We realized, well, now there's the creation of the first U.S. national teams, and there's the creation of the first category for people with IDD in the Paralympic Games, and those are objectives that ultimately we want to achieve in the grand scheme of things. Now, the how, I think it changed. Like, for example, we've changed rules within the competition, right? So instead of 3 periods, 4 periods, we adjusted the time, we adjusted little things and feedback that we got from throughout the process.
Mm-hmm.
But standards had to be professional, that it had to be a professional venues, that the athlete experience was at the center, I think remained throughout the whole process. And we were challenged so many times. We were said, well, why don't you just do the fixture after the professional team plays or before the professional team plays? Well, we check with our why, and that doesn't really align with our why, because we want the athletes to be at the center of the experience, to be the protagonists. They're not the halftime show, they're not an after, they're not before. The fixtures for them, and that's the experience that we want to provide for them. Just like I get it on the weekends, right? And people come and pay a ticket to watch me play. So I think, again, the details changed and we improved and we polished some things, but the why was kept throughout the whole process. And it was important that it was kept because we did a lot of work to get to that why in the first place.
Gotcha. Well, Neil, this is a great conversation. 2 more questions for you, and then I promise to let you go. Let's go back to the Neil of 2023. Before you started this, you had some ideas and certain perceptions as to the road ahead for yourself. Now that you've been through it for a few years, what would you tell that young version of yourself about what's coming?
So many things. I think I'm a completely different person just because of the experience that I had with this project. As I mentioned before, I learned so many things. I think maybe like the 2 lessons that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
In regards to understand that not everyone like functions like I do, and that's perfectly acceptable and good for the company. And then just be more patient. Be more patient. But I would equally say be as determined as I was and were with Joao from the start. And that determination and that clear vision allowed us to convince people that this had to be a reality, that there was no choice, that this had to be a league, and that we had to start, and that the timelines were going to be met. And I think those are the big takeaways. But we've been extremely grateful, as I said before, and blessed with the people that have surrounded ourselves with, and I think those people have been the key, both on the advisory board and of course the executive team that we had. Without them, we wouldn't be here. So
great, I love it. So before we wrap, for those that are just listening and not watching us on audio, or not watching us on video, or don't have the show notes in front of them, how can they find you? How can they donate? How can they volunteer to help?
For sure. So they can go to our website, which is projectinspireusa.org, and they can donate there. There's the donate option, of course, at the website. They can also look at many videos from last year. We just released a documentary that's a 3-part documentary. We released the first version of the documentary a couple days ago.
Okay.
They can see how the league feels, how it looks. You can also go on socials. So we have Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, at Inspire Soccer League, and you can follow us there, follow our journey, the content that we provide. There's goal of the game interviews, player of the game interviews. There's of course player stories and all in between. But the most important thing, as we always say, of course, donate, support as much as you can, but spread the word. Tell everyone, tell a friend about us, tell them what we're doing, and spreading the word is really what's going to get us to the sustainability that we're hopefully want to attain soon.
Well, that's what we're here for, is get the word out. Thanks, Neil. We appreciate you coming on and joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Russ. It's been a pleasure, honestly. And again, we really appreciate you providing the platform for me, but most important for Inspire Soccer League to just share the word of what we're trying to do here. So thank you so much.
No, it's our pleasure. So that's a wrap for this episode of Legacy Unscripted. If today's conversation sparks something in you, don't just let it sit. Take action today to build your future. Make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this with someone who may need to hear it. And if you've got a story to share or you just want to connect, you know where to find me. Until next time, keep it real, keep it bold, and keep living your legacy.